So use the word ovarian cancer. Explain where that is in the body. Don't use any euphemisms because that's really confusing for kids. And that's what I really tell parents that they should be guided by, just being honest, being okay saying, I don't know, when they don't know the answer, and talking to their kids and including them in what's happening. I often hear parents say as well, you know what, my child's not asking me any questions, so that's why we're not talking about it. But again, if kids are living in a family where we don't talk about this hard thing that's going on, the cancer diagnosis, they've learned not to talk about it. And so they're often just taking the parent's lead. And again, they might be just trying to protect the parents. And that's why I always encourage parents not to wait until your child comes to you and asks about what's happening, but take the lead and sit down with the kids and tell them what's happening. One of the best things that we can do for kids is make them feel included. And this goes back to what Katrina was saying when she talked about the research showing that the less information we give kids, the higher their anxiety goes. So if families can reassure kids that, you know what, we're going to let you know what's happening. Right now the doctors say that I'm doing pretty well and I'm using this medication called chemotherapy and they're hoping to completely get rid of this cancer. But if that changes, we're going to let you know. So any child who can feel reassured that their parents or their grandparents are including them and are being honest with them, those kids will be less likely to be worried and thinking, uh-oh, I don't know what's happening in my family right now. Something big might be happening and nobody's even talking to me about it. Another thing I heard, and this was quite often when I was working in palliative care, is a lot of people saying, you know what, I'm not going to talk to my child about it until I know that I'm dying very, very soon. And that's not helpful for the child either, because children want an opportunity to be able to say goodbye to somebody who's dying. Children want an opportunity, again, to be involved in the care and just to know that the adults in their lives, because those are the people that children trust more than anyone, are their parents, that those parents are being honest with them. And even if that means being sad and being worried about mom sometimes, kids are still feel so much more comfortable. Just know that they're being included and information's not being kept from them. And too often when I was working in palliative care, parents would wait till it was too late, until a mom or a dad couldn't talk anymore to the kids to tell them what was happening. And the person was very close to dying, and that would deny the child the entire opportunity to be able to say goodbye to the parent or tell them that they love them or have any of the conversations with them that they really wanted to have. One of the reasons that parents, I find, and adults in general, are so hesitant to talk to kids about these really hard things is because we don't understand how kids grieve. So we often think that kids grieve the same way we grieve, which is often that we're pretty consistently upset and this big thing is hanging over us all of the time. But for kids, they grieve very differently. Kids do an amazing, amazing job of holding deep, deep joy and deep, deep sorrow at the same time. And I frequently get calls from parents saying, you know, I just sat my 6-year-old down and we told them that, you know, I've got cancer, and he was really, really upset for a while, and then he went out and played hockey 10 minutes later and he seems totally fine. And that's the way kids grieve. They grieve in chunks. So they're really, really upset sometimes, and then they're absolutely fine and they're loving life. And that's even if the conversation involves a parent who's dying. And that's what I often hear. Parents are just so shocked and almost envious of their kids' ability to do the deep sorrow and the deep joy at the same time. A really incredible experience that I had that demonstrated this for me was right after the 2004 tsunami in Sri Lanka. I ended up going to Sri Lanka and working with kids there who had been in an orphanage at the time of the tsunami. And their orphanage was built right up on the water, and the tsunami hit the orphanage, and most of the kids died. So out of about 130 kids, only 30 of the kids survived. And I arrived at this orphanage probably about 2 to 3 weeks after the tsunami happened. And the kids were running around, and they were playing and laughing, and they were so loving towards us. And these kids, I mean, most of them were orphaned by the Civil War in the first place. And then to have, so many of their friends and their siblings die in the tsunami. Yet they were still embracing life with such deep joy. And other times they looked very, very sad. And they were in the corners crying and things like that. And that's completely okay. But it's just really good for adults to know that kids don't grieve the same way as adults, and they don't think about, a parent's cancer diagnosis constantly. They'll think about it sometimes. They'll ask questions if you provide an environment where they know they can ask questions, and then they're going to go on to being a kid and play and have fun and love life. What I'd like to do now is just sort of talk about how do we actually have these conversations. So quite often in my work with families, I will talk to parents or to the grandparents, and I'll guide them as to how to talk to their kids about it. Sometimes I'll be the one who talks to the kids directly. So sometimes if I'm working with a family where the parents just don't feel they can have the conversation, I'll be in the room and I'll have the conversation with the parents in the room. But it's always good for kids to get the news of a cancer diagnosis from the people that they're closest to. So their parents, and if it's a grandparent with a diagnosis, it's still really good to have the parents in the room when you talk to the kids about it. A really good place to start this conversation is just to ask the kids, what do they know so far? What's their understanding of the situation? So when I do this, I usually try to create an environment where I'm sitting down with the kids, I'm on eye level with them, so I'm not looking over them, or that I'm not looking down on them. If there's stuffed toys around, even if I'm on a nursing unit, if it's a younger child, I'll try to give them a stuffed toy or something they can hold on to. And that's where I'll start. I'll say, so what do you understand about what's happening with your mom right now? And quite often we're surprised, and quite often kids know a whole lot more than we think they know. When I was working with kids with cancer, I'd see 3-year-olds walking around all the time talking about thrombocytopenia and things like that. And kids can use big words. And so when kids tell you what they know and what they understand, just check in with them about if they're using words like thrombocytopenia or leukemia or ovarian cancer. Ask them what they understand about those words. So what's your understanding of what cancer is? And then that really gives you the chance to clarify any misconceptions that the kids might have. Another piece is just really allowing kids to know that all questions that they have are absolutely okay. There are no questions that are out of bounds. And sometimes kids' questions will blow parents away, and they wonder, well, how can you be thinking about this right now? I know quite a few kids who, when they were told that mom has cancer, their biggest concern was, are we still going to go on vacation in the summertime? And that's okay. We don't want to minimize kids' concerns at all. I know of kids who were being told that a parent or a grandparent had cancer and they would eventually die from their cancer, and kids who were really, really concerned, well, how is grandma going to pee in the coffin? And this is kids trying to understand these really hard concepts that even as adults are hard for us to understand. And so we don't want to ever minimize any of the kids' concerns. And we just really want to create an environment where the kids know that they can ask any questions at all. And when we're talking to kids about cancer,